And we're here.
And we're live.
Hi, everyone. Welcome Thursday night, Generational Change. I'm Jen.
I'm Peter.
And we're here.
And we are
live. Hi, everyone. Welcome Thursday night.
Yeah, so Colin, you're going to have to fix that immediately. There's some type of an audio kickback that's happening right now, so you got to figure out what that is.
That's not good at all.
You have to fix that immediately. There's some type of an audio.
That's not
okay. Yeah, that's something with on you, Peter. It looks like.
It's always you, Peter.
Okay. Yeah, that's something with on. Let me try this. Nope, that didn't help.
It's always you, Peter.
Okay, yeah, that's something with I would try. If you don't, do you have headphones?
I don't have headphones, but I just removed.
If you don't, do you have headphones?
I'm gonna come back in.
I don't know that that'll help him, but in any event. So why is it now I'm finding out that you guys are doing a call-in show over at Status Quo at 7:30? So now we're like, what is happening? Why is your members call on a regular? What is happening?
They've always been Thursdays. That's just a Jordan thing. Yeah.
It's all good. I don't like competing with Jordan though.
That solved it.
Are we sure?
So what happened was I had because I was going to update the page on.
Did you have it open twice?
I had two windows open. That was
of course you did.
I was by accident.
Of course it was.
You think I do things on purpose?
No, I just think you're like Mr. Magoo.
No, but not all of us males are Neanderthals. We don't just pound stuff and try to.
That's not what I'm sort of applying more like a cluelessness factor.
It was an honest mistake. We figured it out. I heard the audio kick, and I'm sure it probably messed with some people initially.
It was not good for any of us. That's not good for anybody.
That's not going to be. Hey, whatever happened to no more Seinfeld references? I thought that was.
I can't help myself. It's so frustrating.
Why do you keep making references to Seinfeld?
That's worse. Stop it. Now that it's like that. Ugh.
Well, we're not going to keep our public waiting. So welcome to Thursday night Generational Change. We have made the official transition to 7 p.m.
And yes, once a month, apparently, we are going to coincide with the Status Quo members call, which Peter and I are both members. We're both members. We're not really mocking it, but it's just a little funny that we're coinciding.
No, but then again, if we did it at 9 o'clock, we wouldn't have our esteemed guests this evening. So we're definitely grateful that they are here. And of course, time-wise, we always want to adhere to what is best for our team. And so without further ado, we believe that on this channel, it is essential that we have conversations with people that we don't necessarily agree with across the board politically. In fact, that's where most of the conversation should happen. And we often see that a lot of people just want to get safe into their echo chambers. Us even making a comment regarding whether or not Elon was doing a specific type of salute the other night was met with a couple of people in the chat saying that, oh, he's a Nazi. How are you defending him, etc. I'm just thinking, no, that's actually not
what did you put out from us? Dare I know?
I didn't put out anything. I'm just saying, we have some sensitive members of the audience. Did you get that Instagram message that I sent you?
Which one?
The one about the guy who wants me to sumo wrestle.
Okay, no, I'll look. But what?
No, trust me, I'm not. I took one look at that and I'm thinking, it's a little. The one thing about having a bigger channel now is you start getting the more bizarre individuals that. CanCon knows what I'm talking about.
All I know is there's a lot of times when you send me things that you think are funny, and I think you should send them to Jason because Jason would find them funny. Usually those are the kinds of things that are like anything in the realm of Ace Ventura, any of that kind of crap, South Park that you find funny that I do not, that's that stuff.
Speaking of Jason, I sent him a 2-hour long video last night. That is exactly that is like the best. That'll be like the best 2 hours he could hope for.
Oh,
so
good.
basically, it's this guy Bill Simmons he was like a known sports commentator for a long time, but he does like a lot of like social commentary, movie commentary, and he did a 2-hour podcast on Roadhouse. So I sent it to him, and I have no doubt he's going to enjoy that.
It's like a dissertation. Jason could write a dissertation on Roadhouse,
which is why he's going to enjoy it. I have no doubt. So without further ado, you know him, you love him. He's been a guest on our podcast before. He's a South Floridian, and he dislikes a lot of South Florida politics as much as we do. CanCon, Brian Lupo, welcome back to Generational Change.
Hey, guys. Great to be back.
Hi, it's good to see you.
Yeah, it's always good to be seen, and it's good to see both of you guys. I called it, by the way, the YouTube window. I called it in the chat over there. I knew.
Wait, what was it?
You have an extra window open, and there's like a 10-second delay. So you're 10 seconds into the show.
You knew that's what it was. That's what you're saying. Yeah.
And they're done that.
Well, we're appreciative for that. We're also appreciative of the guests that you brought on this evening. Jen and I have had a very, I would say, as probably as honest an opinion about January 6th as just about anybody, especially anybody who floats in left politics. Although I just like to say working class politics because it's all interconnected with the class wars we talked about. But people obviously have very strong opinions about what transpired on January 6, 2021. And of course, a lot of people that form these opinions don't actually know people that were directly affected by January 6th. We are very happy to bring on this evening somebody who was there on January 6, 2021, and actually was recently given his freedom by President Trump. James Brett, welcome to Generational Change.
Thanks a lot, bud. Nice to be here. Thanks, guys.
Welcome. Yeah, I mean, I have no idea, like, the backstory, like, what where you were on January 6th, like, what your connection is. I mean, Peter, Brian, like, I don't know the best way to start. Like, this is definitely out of my wheelhouse.
Well, I can. So James, I'll let you tell your story, James, about what took place on that day.
Okay. I went to the National Monument, or the Washington Monument. I was with a group. We said a prayer, set off down the National Mall, and we ended up going to the food trucks. Grabbing a good old taco snack there, and we finally arrived at the Peace Circle. And what we heard, and this is something that's not often told, but there were people on megaphones yelling that Trump was going to speak at the Capitol. And having heard the speech, you assume that would be plausible. And there was a surge behind what you saw shown by the media, the police barricades going back and forth, and what looked like an awful confrontation. We didn't see that back where I was. All we heard was Trump's going to speak at the Capitol. So the whole crowd surges forward. And then we see a police line, and it pulls back, and people move forward, and it pulls back. And next thing you know, everybody's in front of the West Plaza. And that's when things got a little weird. At that point, nobody was being violent. We're singing the national anthem, Pledge of Allegiance, and then they pulled out what looked like a SWAT team, and they started firing pepper bullets. A lot of people don't know these pepper bullets. They were out of date, and it was quite a cold day.
It was freezing.
So they weren't vaporizing. They were penetrating through people's cheeks, visors, and these are all people who weren't being violent. What caused the violence was this occurrence: concussion grenades, pepper spray being sprayed very close, which can be lethal, concussion grenades being shot, which very close, which can be lethal as well. And that's what tipped it all off. The population there was about 60% veteran, and a lot of these guys were OEF, OIF, Operation Enduring Freedom, Operation Iraqi Freedom, for those that don't know. And it did trigger a response. and it was horrible in a lot of respects. And I feel that police officers as well as protesters were set up, because I saw the look on police officers' eyes, and they were just as scared as we were. I think there were some people who set that up. It felt that way. I ended up getting swept into the tunnel, the egregious tunnel, where I was horrified at what was going on. If these doors are magnetic, I would have loved to seen somebody pull the door shut and lock it, and that would have been a done issue in the tunnel. But they continued the battle, and it just if you know what the setup for the tunnel is, there's a big flight of steps at the entrance of the tunnel. So when you get in there and people are pushing against you, what you're thinking is, oh my God, I'm gonna get trampled on these steps. And nobody could see what was going on in the tunnel. We kind of assumed that it was just like the other side, people were being welcomed in, and they weren't at all. So this was a flashpoint, and it was not an enjoyable experience. I left the Capitol right after the first tunnel clearing. I was like, this is not where I want to be, not where I need to be for my family. Does not represent the whole movement, what was going on. And I got the hell off the Capitol property.
Well, let me ask you, so why you were there with your group, and what was your reasoning for being what was your, group about, and why were you there?
So I wanted, like so many other Americans, to peacefully redress my government, air my grievances. And I support that, by the way. I don't care if you're left, if you're right. Everybody needs to have their voice heard. That's a fact. So I was just there to redress my government, wave a flag, sing the national anthem. I did a rosary that day. It was a beautiful day up until the point where they started literally shooting at people who weren't being violent. And then those people that got shot at, it's kind of like a self-preservation innate reflex that you're like, you get enraged. Like, why are they shooting at me? I'm not even doing anything. I'm just standing here waving a flag. And
it's the same on the right as what they do on the left. The same thing that happened there is the kind of stuff that happened at Black Lives Matter, and is the same kind of stuff that happened at Cop City. And I actually saw some of that at Cop City. So they purposefully instigate and purposefully create violence so that they get to justify state violence, okay, and oppression of us. So apparently they do it on both sides. I mean, at least they do it equally, but that's what it sounds like to me. It sounds like to me, they knew damn well that they were dealing with groups of veterans, probably a ton of whom have PTSD, who knows? And then you just start instigating and poking and prodding, and you get the result, you get the reaction that you're wanting. So this, to me, seems very purposeful and not necessarily intentional by the people that were there like you.
Exactly. And that's the way I've said this so many times before. We were treated egregiously because all we wanted to do was exercise our First Amendment rights. And I find it interesting that the only one with a gun there actually ended up being an ex-federal officer. That was another interesting point for me.
Scaffold guy?
Yeah, the scaffold guy.
And we didn't find out about that until 5 months ago. That would have been front page news if he stood up on the scaffolding and shot a gun twice in the air. And I didn't find out about this until about 5 or 6 months ago.
Who did that?
There was a random protester that was there. He turned out like James said. Was he an actual Fed or was he a CHS?
He was a Fed.
He was an actual Fed.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's the same. This is another thing. So they're just obviously wanting to increase, because this was one of the biggest things that came out of Black Lives Matter was the increase in militarization, as if we needed that with our police departments. And so now the cop cities and all these things, and that and stuff like January 6th is just more support for their desire to just keep us completely oppressed.
Well, and the thing that they do so beautifully, and I'll hammer this point, is they divide such a wedge between black, white, right, left, gay, straight, Catholic, Protestant. There's all these labels, and they drive a wedge so well that they get us fighting ourselves, which we the people. I don't care if you're liberal, conservative. It's we the people. We're a metamorphic conglomeration of wonderful things, right? So they get us fighting with ourselves. Meanwhile, they're literally screwing everybody behind their back with what they do in policy. And you can see it. I call it the uniparty, because that's exactly what it is.
That's what I say. I say it's like a unibrow, but a uniparty. That's what I say. The uniparty. That's really good.
Both wings of the same bird, and that bird does not like us. It's establishment. It's not here for us. And I went, after I got arrested for January 6th, I would sit there and I'd say, we saw this in the 1960s civil rights movement. We've seen this before, and the January 6ers experienced the same thing they were experiencing back then.
You got arrested after the fact, right? Like, it wasn't like you were doing anything. You left.
18 months later. And then they squatted my home, pointed weapons at my 1.5-year-old daughter and my wife, and trashed the house. And what they do is they come in, and then they'll turn all your cameras around.
Yep.
Your home security cameras.
Yep.
So that nothing's videotaped, but I actually had my neighbor. I was fortunate. He videotaped my raid, and I'll send that to you offline later. But you can actually see it.
That's crazy. The kind of I believe you, because I know that happens. I'm not delusional, but it's just more excuse for them to be more and more militaristic. That's what it feels like to me. And how did they, and this is probably sounding ridiculous, but I'm old and I'm not on social media, so excuse me. How did they find you? You were just some guy in a group in a tunnel that went home.
Mm-hmm.
So
we had all of our ping data. All of our ping data.
As somebody who has been to the National Mall and has been to the Capitol, I can assure you that every single street light, post, anything that surrounds that 2-mile radius.
So it's just a matter of face recognition, and
there is infrared, all types of cameras that are there. You just can't see them.
So they admitted to using. Go ahead, James. Go ahead.
No, they the night before, and I came in on January 5th. We were having a good time in Freedom Square and whatnot. We took a walk, and we happened to see they had set up cell phone towers or triangulated around the Capitol. And this is proven. And then they had a facial recognition tower up on the one building, which is not there anymore. And it was all set up the night before. Everything had been set up. So my thing is, okay, you knew something was going to go down. That's just the wheel of logic that goes with me. Is it was a stinking setup. And it's like seeing a ton of bricks being dropped off at random locations throughout Minnesota or, California and all that. Like, it's just a random pile of bricks that just happened to show up there the night before, but there's a reason for it, because they want to spark violence. They want us to fight with each other.
Of course. And that's a good group to instigate. That it's not like, it makes sense. And I can see so many different motives and reasons as to why people want that. It isn't just one group that wants everybody fighting, right? Like, it serves multiple people on its way up to the top of the Capitol food chain.
And this is, I keep on preaching this, and I was on opposing sides with Black Lives Matter, just because it's not that I don't agree with the movement. I did not like the organization.
Oh, I didn't. I understand. But we, as a whole, they use those things, because I went to multiple Black Lives Matter protests, multiple, and none of them were violent. None of them were a problem. And I've been to multiple Palestine marches. None of those people are violent. None of them. They're just not. That's not.
Yeah.
And people provoke. And there's people that are plants. And there are people that are there to instigate and act like they're part of them when they're not part of that group.
And that's the thing that I saw straight across the board. There were people that day that I know weren't Trump supporters who were in the bushes changing into Trump gear, and that the footage is abundant.
Wow.
And plentiful. And it was what we know now to be Antifa. And here's my thing. I don't care what your political opinions are. You're entitled to them because you're an American. I think that shows like this are amazing because we're actually talking like we should. That like these politicians can't figure out. We're sitting here having a good discussion. And they want us not to have this discussion because then we might unify and figure out that they're the problem.
Oh,
so.
yeah.
Well, look, I'll bring you guys in on like the grand plan. So May 1st, 2028, general strike. That's something that is a working class issue, a labor issue that everybody needs to be getting behind in general is labor. That is something that unifies all of us is, and, it's sort of like we have that infrastructure. We just need to support it and not, like we don't need to reinvent that wheel, but they keep us fighting. They keep us labeled, which is why I don't like labels. I've actually had people tell me they're quote unquote conservative. And then we have a conversation and we agree on like 75% of the things. So there's no way that they would really be what is they think like, so what is somebody, it's all relative. What do you think a conservative is versus what you think a liberal is? So when you use those terms, it's inherently divisive.
Yes.
That's how we met. We sat down, we started talking like I'm a MAGA, I don't even call myself a conservative, libertarian, small L. And but America first, and you were, I knew who you were because you ran in my district previously.
Yeah.
And we had a conversation for like 2 hours, and it was crazy. But the other facet to this, Jen, is that if you don't consume the type of media that me and James would go looking for, there's a lot of stuff on January 6th that you missed.
Of course.
I was holding up the cell phone earlier about how they tracked you. They tracked the ping data of J6ers that were there. Ironically, the only J6er that they can't get the data for was the pipe bomber, the guy that dropped off the pipes the night before at the DNC and the RNC. Now, this person dropped off pipe bombs 17 hours before January. Well, was it 17 hours? It was the night before. Dropped off pipe bombs with an egg timer. An egg timer is a 60-minute timer. What was he going to come back and reset that 60 minutes every single time, every hour? But we never got that. We got footage leaked to us here and there. We have a lot of evidence that suggests it was probably a federal agent that was doing it or somebody, like that. But we don't know. We don't know. And we were lied to about the J6 committee told us that the cell phone data was corrupted, right? Well, after President Trump won his election in November 5th, all of a sudden the phone companies come out and say, well, the data wasn't lost. They never asked us for the data. So the J6 committee never asked the cell phone carriers for the data on the J6 pipe bomber that was there. And these are people that just got pardoned as well. So you talk about the J6ers. I was just on another show mentioning this. All the J6ers that have been pardoned, first and foremost, they're not doing prison sentences that are relatable to the crime that they committed. Okay, 4 or 5 year sentences for trespassing and breaking a window is insane. Right,
that's what I was going to say. The charges that we're talking about are not related directly to people that were physically injured.
It's insane. Yeah. And then here's the crazy part. So all these people that are being pardoned were tried in D.C. None of them got a change of jurisdiction, even though they're not in a jury of their peers in Washington, D.C., 96% Democrat, listening to MSNBC where they're called insurrectionists every day. That is not a jury of your peers, but they weren't allowed to change venue. Okay, they've all been convicted. Joe Biden pardoned the J6 committee. We don't know the extent of the crimes that they've committed yet. We don't know if they knew who the pipe bomber was, because if that pipe bomber is a Fed, this escalates everything.
Where was that set up? Like, this is something that, like, I didn't even know, arguably I knew it was being completely overblown in terms of what the intent were I knew that was silly. Okay?
Whoever was responsible for releasing the information about Ray Epps, that was when everything changed.
But what's the pipe bomber story? Because I don't even know that.
So the pipe bombs were placed at the DNC and the RNC, and they found them like right before or just after 12 o'clock p.m. on January 6th. Okay. And because they found the pipe bombs, they cordoned off that whole entire area. Now, Congressman Massey came out and said that through his investigation on the weaponization committee, he found that I think it was like 2 or 3 truckloads of barriers were blocked from getting to the Capitol because they cordoned off the whole area around this bomb area. Their whole plan, and this is completely my opinion, and a lot of people agree with me on this, but their whole plan was to shut down the count and create this drama, create this problem so that they could justify not challenging the vote, because they had the congressman and the Senate challenging to call for a 10-day audit into the election. It doesn't matter what your opinion is on whether or not the election was stolen. This is a constitutional process. It is permissible, and they had the people to do it, and they had to shut down the vote. And so to what James was saying earlier about pepper balls and everything, if you've never been around a concussion grenade, it is insane. It is
shockingly, I haven't.
It is extremely loud. It fires out a bunch of they're called stingers, and they're rubber balls, and they are designed to cause bad pain. Like, watch Jackass. Johnny Knoxville shoots one at everybody, and it's like the one challenge that the guy was like, I'm not doing that.
Hold on a second. And when we talk about things like that, can I just have a quick reference that these are all boys that do that stupid shit, right?
Yes.
Okay, it's never women. Okay.
So the other thing is that they were throwing they were also throwing tear gas in there, and I don't know if you guys have ever been tear gassed, but
I've been close. I've been close, but managed to evade it. But who was doing this?
Capitol. Well, to be fair, it was actually more Metropolitan Police than it was the Capitol Police. The Capitol Police were not the ones that were like, we have all the body cam footage and all this, and it's always.
And isn't that weird too, in and of itself, that it wasn't the Capitol Police?
But so let me. Go ahead, James.
Go for it, bud.
Well, I want to keep going, because there's the Metropolitan Police. There's one massive failure that caused everything that happened on January 6th. So they're throwing all the tear gas into the crowd. If you've ever been to the biggest concert you've ever been to in your life, imagine being like 15 rows back, okay, and you have no exit. There's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, somebody throws a really irritating gas into the crowd, starts throwing grenades into the crowd. You panic the shit out of these people. You panic them. And they have no other option but to push forward to get clean air, to get out of the way of getting shot, to get these concussion. I mean, I'm not talking like 1 or 2 grenades. I'm talking like hurling them in there. Guys behind the line, we have their body cam where they're like, I'm out of ammo. Get me more ammo.
Is that underneath? That was going on underground stuff?
No.
This footage I saw was the stuff that Jordan's cameraman got that they used. Like, that's the only footage that I saw where, I'm not sure where.
This is police body cam of the Metropolitan cops that are on the front lines. You have a guy that's unhinged and grabs a taser and comes up, moves a cop out of his way, and shoots a man that's just standing there. Shoots him with a taser. Now, the key that blew everything wide open is there's one Metropolitan police officer that had a tear gas grenade, right? A gun. And he gives the gun to a guy, and the guy says, where do I shoot it? And he says, shoot it up in the fucking rafters. And so he goes to shoot it up in the fucking rafters. This is all in body cam.
Right.
It's a dud. It's a short round. So the round only goes about 40 yards. It's supposed to go a couple 100 yards, 100 yards or so. And it goes like 30 or 40 yards. It's a dud. And it ignites, and you see all this gas come out. And you can watch this on video. Okay, they've got 2 videos. They've got a bird's eye view of the whole field that's got a timestamp, and then the body cam foot. And I've put the 2 of them together. Gary McBride, M5 News, put them together. And we've shown it to where when he has that short round, it gasses the entire line of police officers. All of the police officers who are the front line got gassed by that guy, and they all left. And then the crowd just walked in. They don't tell you. Nobody ever tells anybody this.
Right. Of course not.
Well, there was two parts of the story that never made any sense to me. The first one was Ray Epps, as I mentioned. You literally have somebody verified as an FBI agent, and you have footage, raw footage of him saying, we have to get into the Capitol. We have to get into the Capitol. And the other element is, this is the Capitol. No one is breaching this building unless they're allowed to. There is no of this, oh, we're just going to break in. We're just breaking into the Capitol, and they're just going to let us in. That is not going to happen. The only time you're getting in there is if somebody on the inside is saying, let him in. That's it.
They have the footage of the guy that's inside, and he's looking up at one of the cameras like he knows where the cameras are. And you see him looking up, and he's pointing at the door, and then he points at another door, and then he goes over and opens it. Now, these are magnetically sealed doors. You're not opening that. You need like 10,000 pounds of pressure to break that magnet. And the guy is looking at the camera, pointing, and he opens the door. This is all the footage that was denied the J6ers. They were not allowed to get any of this footage for their defense. This is massive Brady violations. Massive Brady violations.
Yeah, and the other thing that doesn't get talked about enough, and you two men are Marines, as the saying goes, you're once a Marine, always a Marine.
Yeah.
There is also something to be said for people that understand trench warfare that the average American doesn't have a clue about, doesn't understand psychological warfare, why this was done. I have always maintained that we are living in a kind of faux pas society at this point. It is run by oligarchy. There is no question that the biggest issue that the oligarchy has with Trump is not that he's here to save America, but that he may accidentally spill the beans on the truth about our system. And that has always been the biggest problem they have with him. We're totally going over there to get the oil. That's the reason. And it's like, no. We cannot have the leader of the free world talking like this, because that exposes our grift. It exposes the fact that we don't have health care. We don't have a living wage. We have when we talk about it's like drill, baby, drill. It's like, okay, that may seem good in the short term for people that benefit financially from investing in fossil fuels. But tell me if you would have a fracking well in your backyard, because I know I wouldn't. And we know that water is poisoned all over this country, whether it's in Flint, Michigan, or East Palestine, Ohio. This is a huge crisis that gets to the heart of the problem here. We do not have a representative democracy in a constitutional republic. It doesn't exist anymore. And the sooner we come to that consensus as a nation is the faster we are going to unite around class war issues. This whole red-blue bullshit, this has got to die. Like, it's got to die, or we're going to die. And I don't want to die. I like living. I kind of enjoy it. And I'm a fan. Yeah. And that's also the thing that, James, I think you could speak to is, I don't think people truly understand what it's like to lose your freedom, especially for something that, based on what they're saying you did, clearly didn't happen. And the amount of mental fortitude that you have to have, especially after serving in combat, to have to go through this psychological bullshit at home is on a whole other level that the level of privilege that so many Americans truly have when it comes to this type of stuff truly is disturbing. And it's very, very common when it comes to the comfortable liberal class in this country and the way they disparage those that put on the uniform.
I think really when you look at it too, there's so many distractions, whether it's sports, it's Hollywood, whatever they put in front of you. It's kind of like that little butterfly over here, that dragonfly over there, and it's shiny and it's nice, so you're going to look at it. But here's the thing. If we don't start talking with each other and we don't start getting involved as Americans in our local government, our state government, and our national government, these statues that are in there that say they represent us are going to keep on doing the same old thing. And we have to assume control. And like you said, we can't keep this bullshit up between the red and the blue and any other issue that they might set out there. It's all labels, and they all divide. And
why do you
old
put
hat.
that up and make me have to say that the opinions of Peter Hager do not reflect that of me? I don't support nuclear. Why are you putting that up?
Go live in the whatever you want to go live on with your chickens in the
I'm
in
gonna
the
go
mountains.
live in my commune with chickens and be very content. I don't need your nuclear crap near me,
Well,
or your fracking or your other toxic crap.
Well,
No.
I'll take Series 4 nuclear and do away with fracking if that's what it's going to take. Okay, well, fine.
Thank you,
can agree
wanker
with
tanker.
Agree with wanker. That's fine. You go
I
right
do
with
agree
that.
with the wanker.
Yeah.
Oh my lord.
So
Yeah, but-
are you? So are you? Is it expunged? Is this completely off your record?
I am pardoned. I was not sentenced as of yet. So it was a case dismissal, a pardon that drove a case dismissal. So my process had not been completed. Thank God. But I'll have a little less showing on my record as opposed to others. But, you know, that's the other point that I'll make. And this it's very obvious all around the country. If you get arrested for something, the process is the punishment. More than the jail time is the punishment. It's the process that became the punishment for me. Whether it's ankle monitors, GPS monitoring, curfew calls between 10 and 6 a.m. and, you know, or even just having your home invaded by the FBI. And the process was definitely the punishment. And I got to see along the way, you know, what they would admit as evidence. And we weren't given due process. We were put in a kangaroo court. And these courts, I'm telling you, I don't care if you're right or left, you go in there, there's normally a 99% conviction rate in the federal government.
Oh,
Yeah,
I clerked for a federal judge. I know if you get charged, that's it. They're good.
You're done.
That's
You're
it.
done. And that's not the way our system was meant to be. And I'm more of a libertarian. Absolutely. I'm more of a constitutionalist. And yeah, I do love my nation. So, you know, they've bastardized the term nationalist to make it something that it never was. But I love my nation. I love my country. I love where we live. And I just want to see the bullshit stop. And it's all the people with this that make the people without this miserable.
So when
I
you
do
see
see
all
that.
the oligarchs, so like Brian, when you see all the oligarchs, you know, basically standing behind Trump, and you're like, okay, great. Now they're all unified together. It's like some great superhero force of oligarchy.
Well, and you know what the funny thing is about Trump is he really doesn't like any of them.
Okay, first of all,
like
my
him.
theory is none of them like each other. And this is because they are all narcissists. I find them to be very small men that are overcompensating for don't know. And especially Bezos with like the rocket ship. Like, I'm sorry, whatever they're compensating for, whatever people that drive cyber trucks are compensating for, the same. That's
I'll take a 1980 F-150 as opposed to a Cybertruck any day.
All right, I'm a Chevy. I have Chevy, but I do drive a pickup truck.
Atta girl.
So I think, you know, the people that are surrounding him right now is interesting. I don't think that President Trump necessarily likes them very much. I do think he likes Elon. I do think he likes Elon.
I know, and that should be cause for concern for anybody to like Elon.
See, I'm the opposite. I think Elon he's a little too into the transhuman thing with like the Neuralink and all that stuff. But in terms of everything else, the stuff that he's done, I mean, the catching of the Starship, the Starship Heavy, 5 days
you're
ago.
looking at substance. Stop being substantive. I just think he's such a douche.
I think he's a dork. I don't think he's a douche. He's
No, he's douche. This is a guy who was picked on when he was little, had tons of surgery, had himself fixed up. He's got obviously a big chip on his shoulder. And these are just like, they're little men competing with each other. I'm putting up my slide. It's going to happen. I have a slide presentation for you guys.
But there are also people that are at the forefront of the new
the Billionaire barbershop quartet.
Okay, well, look, I don't put
the Oligarch Chronicles, tales of emasculated men vying to destroy the world. Okay, this is how I see these people.
Okay, now I look at Zuckerberg, Bezos, and Gates the exact same way. Gates is probably the worst out of the four.
He is the worst of all.
Hands down. We've said that a million times. Gates is
sinister. Like, I think Gates is a person who enjoys playing God. Like, I really do.
He's evil.
I think why he got divorced is linked to Jeffrey Epstein. He's got he's got Gates is creepy as F. Zuckerberg and Elon are Asperger's, and Bezos is just like Lord Farquaad from Shrek. Like, it's just a literally little man. I don't know if you guys know Shrek, like who Lord Farquaad is, but that's how I think of Jeff Bezos.
That's an accurate representation.
Elon won me over.
Legs, right? They put him on his little legs to make him taller.
Elon won me over when he got X and was able to get most of the accounts back. I understand there's people that still haven't gotten their accounts back. He was able to. What Elon did was he gave everybody in the conservative movement a voice on a major platform. We were so censored on everything. You know, I can't have a YouTube channel still to this day. I can't do a Facebook, my CanCon page. I can't do on Facebook. They won't let me. And I don't say anything crazy. I'm a writer. I'll back up every single thing I've ever written. You know, you might think that I write for a far right blog. Okay, fair enough. Pick out an article that I've written and challenge it. And I will source receipts on everything. But they call us conspiracy theories and theorists and all this other stuff, and they won't let us speak. And Elon, not only did he give us a platform, but he gave us a platform that we're actually able to get some sort of relevance on. And it enables discussions like this one. It enables us to be able to talk and not just live in an echo chamber every single day when you get on social media and feel good because every single post you see is about being able to transition children. And you're like, yay, everybody's doing it. It's like, no, most of us don't think that children should be allowed to have, you know, life altering decisions like that. And Elon gave us that platform. And now granted, I understand it's still not perfect.
Well, what scares me is that what somebody can give, somebody can take away. The premise that any individual owns these platforms is what I find really scary. So like, yes, so he's given you a voice and that does please me. And I'm a free speech absolutist. For example, I didn't even like that they deplatformed Alex Jones and he's a complete piece of crap. So like, that's neither here nor there.
Well,
but I'm saying, I agree with you, but it just concerns me that anybody has that control in the first place.
Well, so for that, we need to amend Section 230.
We have a lot of things we need to fix. But yes, like these things should be public utilities at this point, and they need to be subjected to our constitutional rights. That's the way it has to go. I mean, yeah.
And they have half of the protection that a public utility would have. They're free from liability for anything that we say on their platform. And so if they're free from any liability, there's no chance of them getting sued if I say something on their platform. Why don't I have that same protection from them being able to ban me as long as I'm saying things within constitutional limits? Like I can't go out there and say, hey, you should kill somebody. Go out there and kill somebody. But if I'm talking about, you know, Donald Trump and saying that I think Donald Trump is doing phenomenal things right now with Saudi Arabia, with the MBS deal that they just made, I think that's a phenomenal thing. And you get censored, you know. Now they don't always ban you for that, but like 2020 election, if you said that was stolen, you're banned for that.
And then there's banning, and then there's sort of banning, like us. So we weren't banned. We're shadow banned. We weren't banned, but when the first year that we started, I did this Assange for Julian Assange. I did a telethon for Julian Assange. And so ever since that, we've been on like the shit list. Of course, me speaking out against Zionism hasn't helped the situation probably. But so like we get thrown to the bottom of the pile, and I'm also anti-war. So when you talk about things that are anti-empire, they don't like that.
And I think it's also important, and you guys can speak to this because we, you know, Jen and I would like to think, Jen, you would agree that we are America first in the sense that, you know, we want to live in a country where, you know, our people are taken care of, but we don't live in a country like that. We live in a kill or be killed kind of society, and it's turning more and more into the Hunger Games every day.
I just think we need to punch up and not down and sideways. That's my only thought. Like the problems are not the poor people. The problems are not the immigrants. The problems are the capital ownership class that is keeping everybody fighting and keeping policies so that everybody's pissed off.
Yeah.
That's why.
And speaking of true libertarianism, you know, we have lauded Thomas Massie on this show many times. Love to get him on. He does follow us on social media, but Lord knows he's got a lot of people, you know, pulling at him. We're not as big as Mr. Poole, who had him on the other night. But certainly we would like to have him on because I think those types of principles and what he's done for the true conservatism speaks volumes. because he did expose both Cat Turd and DC Drano for guys that are in it for the money. And while I do think that in cases they'll put out messages that are probably correct in a number of instances, make no mistake, when you get right down to it, it's about the money. We see the people that are in, let's say, left YouTube channels. We don't have to name them, but they would never have a conversation like this, because for them, there's two things. Number one, we do this because we truly believe in the mission. If we make money from it, that's great. But this isn't our career. And for people that are doing it for a career, there is a thing called audience capture, number one. And then number two is the concern about whether or not they get any type of shadow ban, because for a lot of them, they are really about living the life. So having the kind of class war crossover conversation is not very appealing. Something as simple as addressing whether or not Elon actually did a specific type of salute the other day is the type of thing where if you do not cut the line right down the middle, he did the Sieg Heil, or did you see everybody else doing it? You are being distracted. And this is also the thing about the liberal class of democratic politics right now. They have nothing. So I told a mutual friend of ours, CanCon, the other day that we met through Mr. Rutkowski, that they have nothing to go on. They're going to run with this for weeks. Weeks, they will not talk about anything else. And that's why AOC is talking about it. That's why they're all blabbing about it. And all the while, my bigger concern is the fact that Elon, in my opinion, is way too comfortable with Netanyahu and the Israel lobby. And I think that their control over our politics is an even greater concern, which isn't going to get talked about much because of the capture, the financial capture of our government by corporate special interests. And the Israel lobby is right at the top. Would love to hear your guys' thoughts on that.
I'm with you on that. And you know, to be fair, from a transactional standpoint, I don't think President Trump's is cozying up to Netanyahu as a lot of people think he is. I think it was Jerusalem Times ran an article yesterday talking about how the Israeli lobby is getting rug pulled right now on Trump because of the people that he's putting over there to make the deal. You know, the first person he called after taking the inauguration was Mohammed bin Salman in Saudi Arabia. And the Abraham Accords, I think, are going to happen. The deal between Saudi Arabia and Israel is going to happen. And that is going to be a massive blow to Netanyahu's party, to the Likud party out there, because, you know, he's ran on making sure that Palestine stays a little caged area. And MBS is saying, no, Palestine's going to be its own independent state. And that was the deal that was on the table before October 7th. And, you know, I have a feeling that a lot of that was orchestrated to collapse the Abraham Accords. And, you know, Trump said the other day, well, not the other day, this is a while back, but he said, you know, when I was talking to Netanyahu, I could tell in 5 minutes he didn't want to make a deal. Netanyahu was not here to make a deal. And I think that's where, was it Benny Gantz was going to be, you know, Benny Gantz was going to challenge Netanyahu and call for a special election. And that was the same day that girl was rescued in Gaza, the hostage that they flew in the helicopter with no door guns because they're brain dead, apparently. Propaganda. But anyways, that's my place on that.
Well, I think it's also important because, as I often have said before and will say again, the opinions of those that have served our country are the ones that I think matter most, especially when it comes to foreign policy. And they especially matter most when it comes to the Marines, because you guys are the frontline fighters. No disrespect to others who go into combat, but there is something about, you know, Semper Fi. It's just a completely different world. It's a completely level of true sacrifice that I don't think most people understand. I think we have to be completely honest here regarding the biggest elephant in the room regarding Israel, and that's Miriam Adelson. And yes, the biggest check that Trump received was $100 million from her. Now, was it necessarily to get him elected? I'm not 100% convinced that was what it was for. I think the $100 million check is to get the West Bank annexed.
Well, no, she just bought the West Bank, but she bought the West Bank, but you do that by getting whoever you want placed in those positions. And at the end of the day, it's going to come down to, is Trump going to serve her above all other interests to the contrary?
That's the question. And
he
and
has
the big
other interests.
Yeah, and the big difference between the type of fighting, if you will, that we see in left politics, like going into a Zoom call and complaining, versus the type of actual fighting that can happen from people that are on the libertarian right. You guys don't take this shit lying down. If you feel that the direction that this country is going in is the wrong direction, you will stand your ground and fight. And I do believe that I hate the word final battle, but the battle for the soul of the future of the United States of America rests on whether or not we will cut ties with Israel. At some point, this conversation must come to the forefront.
Why do you think it that way? See, and I think that Israel is us. I actually think that Israel exists at our pleasure.
I understand that that's what you think, but what I'm saying is that even if that's true, even if that's true to some degree, we cannot neglect the fact that so much of the driving force behind all of the foreign wars and engagements that we've been in since 9/11 have one way or another been directly correlated with the interests of Israel. And you could say that, well, they're, as RFK said, our aircraft carrier in the Middle East, whatever they are, they have caused so much blood to be spilled in the name of bullshit, as I like to say.
Well, and they're creating tons more anti-Semitism as well while they're doing it on their way.
And that's the intention. The intention is to drive that anti-Semitic rhetoric as hard as possible, because that's what they believe gives them cover to continue sending men like you off to die. That's all this is about. And when AIPAC and it wasn't Haaretz, but it was you know what I'm talking about, James. You know I'm going with this.
Yeah.
There was a message that was put out by AIPAC the other day saying we must stand with Israel and we must be willing to fight Iran. And I'm just thinking, how do you guys not see the scam? Like, how do you not see where this is going? You know that this is all about starting World War III and forcing our hand to put hundreds of thousands of U.S. troops into the Middle East. And most of them will die because there is something to be said for people that, especially that, when you think, Jen, you've said many a times that every one person's terrorist is another person's freedom fighter.
Every time. Every time. There's three sides to every story. So yes, every single time that somebody claims somebody's a terrorist, there's somebody who claims that person is a freedom fighter somewhere.
And so when we get involved in these conflicts, and make no mistake, you guys know this as well as anybody, these conflicts are all done over money and power. That is the reason why we're in Ukraine. That's the reason why we're in Gaza. And that is sure as fuck is the reason why we'll end up in Taiwan. This is always about money and power. It always has been. It always will be. They use religion as a crutch because that's what scares the shit out of the most people. And so they're going to continue to use that while completely neglecting whether it's the message of Christ or whoever, it is the complete juxtaposition. It's not the real message. And that, to me, is what I'm afraid of. But what I think these conversations should be doing is facilitating this class solidarity, coupled with how are we going to dismantle the military-industrial complex. I believe in giving as much support as humanly possible to the men and women who put on the uniform. But as I've said to Brian before,
then transfer it to Veterans Affairs and help them.
Yes.
How about that?
As I said to Brian, and I will say to you, make no mistake about who runs this country. When you fly into Washington, D.C., the first thing you see as soon as you land is Lockheed Martin's headquarters. That is on purpose. That is to let you know who's in charge and will continue to be in charge unless we decide that we're not going to let you be in charge.
Well, and
we stand up.
That's the whole thing too. If you looked at Eisenhower, I mean, he sufficiently warned us. He was a general. He knew the military-industrial complex inside and out. He warned us that was the greatest threat. And my concern with Israel is, okay, we're America first. Keep their asses out of our Congress, lobbying our congressmen and women on both sides, because they pander to the right and the left. They don't care as long as they get their way. And this is a thing that has just pissed me off for so long in the respect that, okay, America first. Okay, let's truly put America first and stop giving them, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican in office, stop giving them control over where we fight, what we do, what we buy. It's just ridiculous in my fair estimation.
Well, let me ask you this. Like, I see things like this all the time. Like when you see somebody like Brian Mast wearing an IDF uniform, or you see these Congress people with Israeli flags hanging in at their offices. And this is not uncommon. Like there's a ton of the Congress people that have this. And yet these are many of the same people that would complain about any influence from Russia or China, right? Like if somebody put up the Chinese flag at their office in the Capitol, people would lose their minds.
Yep.
If it was the American Chinese Political Affairs Committee and they were saying, you know, we're going to give $100 million to get rid of some of your Congress people would lose their minds. And
Russia's
yet Brian
been so
Mast is wearing an IDF uniform. How is that not somewhat like, I don't want to say traitor, it's not traitory, but it's just so, it feels very wrong to me for somebody.
Cringy.
It's very cringy. Like you guys serve. So like, how do you, and he did, I don't know what branch, I don't know what he's from, other than I think he's a psychopath, but that aside.
Well, as Floridians here, we can all agree that the worst congressperson in the state of Florida is DWS. But I got to tell you, this guy in the last 5-6 years, especially since October 7th, man, he's pushing really fucking hard for it. So we're going to play this clip real quick.
Israeli spy? Are you spying on the American government for Israel?
In a bold act of patriotism, former U.S. Army intelligence officer Josephine Guilbeault confronted Congressman Brian Mast, calling out his allegiance to Israel after taking over $600,000 from the Israeli lobby to put Israel's interest above America's.
Are you spying on the American government for Israel?
Why would you even ask that?
Because I'm a former intelligence officer. I have read documentation that points to you actually having allegiance to Israel and not America.
That's a very ridiculous question.
Why are you continuing to accept donations from Israeli citizens like the Falek family from Miami?
Really a tremendous ally.
Israel is not our ally.
Do you agree that accepting money to serve Israel's interests over America's is an act of treason?
All right. So, well, again, I'm not going to say treason because it isn't technically treason, but it's just, what are you, I saw you like just cringing, Brian.
Well, when people say Israel's our greatest ally, name one thing Israel has done that makes them an ally.
Why I
Get
don't
Americans
think they're
killed.
an ally. There are attack dog. There are attack dog in the middle. They're doing exactly what we want to be doing, because if they weren't, we wouldn't be with them anymore.
Israel reminds me of and I'm speaking about the government. I have zero issues whatsoever with the Israeli people. Zero.
Oh, I do. Oh, I have issues with them too. We can get to that later. Oh,
I don't. I mean, they might be
talk
proud
about
nationalists. Yeah, they might be proud nationalists, and but I'm saying, like, I have nothing against them. But the Israeli government,
country, but okay,
that's a fair argument. They think that like they can go. They're like the schoolyard bully. They're the little, small kid in school that goes up to the bully and punches them in the mouth. And then when the bully says, "Be here at 4 a.m. or 4 p.m. to get your ass kicked," they run to us and they're like, "Hey," to their big brother, "Hey, can you come and fight this kid for me?" And we're like, "No, I can't fight it, but here, I'm going to give you all this equipment that you can go fight him yourself. And don't worry, we'll foot the bill for all that. Go ahead." It's so ridiculous. Oh, and one other thing. I think it was last year, and I can't remember who sponsored the bill, but we had a bill that would require dual citizenship to be public to the American people. And they got to pass that bill. We got to have it. And this is not just against Israel.
And just so people are clear, but like I could have dual citizenship with Israel if I wanted to.
Yes. And there's a lot of people that are dual citizens in our Congress, and it's not just with Israel, although I would bet it's mostly Israel.
I mean, but
There's
like, and so,
lot.
I mean, I don't know how I feel about that. Like, for example, if somebody's a dual citizen with us in Canada, I don't know that I necessarily
know. Yeah,
I don't have a problem with us knowing. I'm just saying, if we know, like, I don't necessarily have a problem of it as long as you don't see anything that's a conflict of interest. That's why it should be information that we know. I'm just saying, I don't think in and of itself that that's an issue for any country. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's the bill doesn't forbid you from running. It just makes you have to disclose it. And I agree. You should be able to run no matter what, except, as within the bounds of the Constitution. So you can't be president if you're born in another country. But But yeah,
I don't
yeah.
like Congress people showing up to Congress in an Israeli military uniform.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
I think that's completely screwed up.
That shows foreign allegiance, and that is not okay with me.
So that bothers you too, right? Like, and
yes.
This is okay, right? Like, and this is someone we had a friend of mine on, Matthew Ho. I don't know if you know who Matthew is. He's with the Eisenhower Network, and he's also a Marine. But one of the things I'd asked him a long time ago about people like Brian Mast, I'm like, when people serve like you, most of the time, to me, they seem to come out of that seeing that that's not the answer, seeing that we don't want that. And then I see people like Brian Mast that come out and they're complete war hawks, complete warmongers. I mean, like, and I asked Matthew, I'm like, do you think that like just how did he turn into that? Like, how did he? And he's like, no. He was like that when he served. We had people like that amongst us. They're psychotic people. Like, that's just, they're how people that they're into it. And they were like that to begin with. And I just think he's one of those people. There's something wrong with him. Brian Mast, there's something wrong with him.
There's something wrong with a lot of them. And honestly, I'm tired of people using the term, these are our leaders. This is our leadership.
They are
our servants. They're our servants. They're our public servants. They've been given way too much power, way too much money, and they're way too corrupt. And when we truly take that back and start taking active involvement and getting our ass off the couch, that's when this starts to unwind and we can actually have a government. I'm not talking about the White House or specifically Congress, but a government as a whole with the agencies and everything that is truly representative of we the people. And that's been coined a right-wing term, we the people. And that is our term.
That's
all of us.
That was a very conscious decision in 2015 to start putting we the people as some type of a right-wing nationalist fringe statement.
Why is that? It's in my Constitution. Where is my Constitution? What happened in my Constitution?
I never took it. Don't blame me.
Where did it go? It used to be here.
It's supposed to be on the round. It's kind of like I'm there right now, just like imagine.
I don't know where it is. I have a Constitution somewhere.
So this is something that many people don't know, but it's our job to inform people. That's our job. We are here to transform politics into service. So these are the phallic family.
Okay, these are the duty-free people. These people are problematic.
So this is Simon Phallic and his wife.
It's like the East Coast Resnicks.
Yeah. So these guys are billionaires. They live on Miami Beach. This guy has been one of, if not the biggest funder of Wasserman Schultz's political career for quite some time. This is also one of Brian Mast's biggest donors. These guys are known for funding settler groups in the occupied West Bank. These are people that rub elbows with Miriam Adelson on a regular basis. So if you want to get to the heart of the problem that we have right now when it comes to our government being captured by corporate special interests, certainly this is a billionaire, playground that it's turned into. But there is something very sinister about what the Phallic family has been up to and their intentions.
It's phallic with an F, but I get your point. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Did somebody say something else?
They're just being,
Yes, but these are, I'm not telling anybody to go out there and do anything in particular. I'm just saying that if you want to know what the face of the enemy looks like, this is the face of the enemy. And what's always so telling about these individuals, I guarantee you that not only have they
look the same to me. She looks the same as Resnick's wife. She looks the same as Bezos's wife. All these wives look the same to me.
Well, they're Stepford or whatever you want to call them.
A lot of injectable.
But if there's one thing I think we can all agree on is that neither them nor anybody in their immediate family or friends has ever served in the military. Guaranteed. And so it's always people like this that are ready, willing, and able to send others off to do their dirty work. They don't have the courage or the gall to do anything to actually defend this country or fight for it. For them, this is it's just a shell game. And I really wish more and more people would understand that. That is the only reason why Brian Mast does that. And the thing, Brian, that I think you probably noticed when it came to, Mast in particular, you've probably seen the videos, even though they're very lefty. Our friends, Medea Benjamin, led by Medea Benjamin over at Code Pink, they go right up to these Congress members and they call them out immediately. And I will tell you, nobody is as incessant and spiteful and just outright disrespectful at a level that Brian Mast tends to be with these people.
Yeah.
You could see the look in his eyes when that lady came up to him in her uniform, and he didn't want to disrespect her. In fact, he looked kind of scared. He knew that if he said something disrespectful to somebody who wears the uniform, that would not go over well, even with his psycho supporters. And so he chose his words very carefully in a way that I have never seen him do before. And so that really said something to me in that moment, that he was very thrown off by the fact that somebody who wore the uniform was telling him, you're a fucking traitor to America. And he didn't really know what to say. And I thought that was very powerful.
It's interesting because I had no idea what her politics were. None. Because that's something that should be apolitical right there.
It is, yeah.
AIPAC 1000% should be registered as a foreign lobby, as should any lobby that is lobbying on behalf of another country. Even if they're not from that country, they can be U.S. citizens that are lobbying for us to send money to Ukraine. If you're lobbying for us to do something for another country, you should be registered as a foreign lobbyist. We've got plenty of money that needs to be spent here. And to your point earlier about the veteran community and sending it to the VA, that is a really tough pill for a lot of guys that, spent time in either the Marines, the Army, whatever, especially if they're in a combat role, if they're in the infantry, special forces. It's a really tough pill for a lot of these guys to get out and be like, oh, everything we did over there was bullshit. Everything we did over there was because of some fucking oligarch that was like, hey, go over there and kill people. And the biggest red pill for me is, everybody's always, it's the oil. It wasn't the oil. We weren't in Afghanistan for oil. We were in Afghanistan for opium. We were in Afghanistan for poppy. We were bringing that shit back in mass.
We need that. That's what we do.
And the other thing that's there, prevalent, is lithium.
Yes.
Who took over after we withdrew? China slipped in there.
China.
Oh, I love it.
We totally have to deal with China. They're really dangerous people over there, really dangerous people. And let me tell you, Mr. Trump, they are dangerous. You know why? Because they are so far ahead of us technologically at this point. The fact that they have over 6,000 kilometers of high-speed rail and we have nary a freaking thing in this country. And therein lies the biggest problem.
I think the bigger concern is how much better educated their children are being.
Oh my God. Do you see? That's another reason why they don't want us looking at TikTok.
The next generation, see, this is the thing that we're not talking about. The next generation of Americans, and I am a mom, I have 2 boys. And of course, I think my boys are bright, right? But when you have 6 kids, oh God, that's a lot of kids. That's a lot of kids.
My 6th is on the way in April. So.
Oh my God! Well, congratulations to you. That's a lot of babies. But these kids are not learning what they need to be learning to exist in a current world. They're learning what they needed to be learning 200 years ago to be cogs in a machine. And the problem is we've shown video clips before on this where we can look at, this is what they're doing in a classroom in China. And when you look at what their kids are doing, and this is many countries, this isn't just China, but their education, they prioritize their education and they prioritize their next generation. We don't do that here.
No, we don't. And I can speak from personal experience. My son is 18 now. He's in his senior year. And
mine too.
I'm going to pull him out next week and he'll get his GED because it is atrocious what they've done. His grades, he's better off. I said, you're better off getting your GED and applying for colleges where you want to go, or deciding if you want to go in the military, whatever you're going to do. Those high school transcripts, because teachers in this school have done an egregious job. They've fallen short. They haven't been held accountable, and they're more concerned about social issues than teaching my kid reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Where are you? Where are you located?
I'm in Clearwater, Florida.
Okay, so you're in Florida. I didn't know you were in that you were also in Florida. Oh yeah, no, Florida. We're like 48th of education in a country that is already lower than other countries. So we're definitely towards the bottom. And what frustrates me, and I've said it a lot of times, is the other states that are at the bottom are the poorest states in the country. Florida is one of the wealthiest states in the country, and yet we're at the bottom with states like Mississippi and West Virginia, who don't have anywhere near our, what we're capable of in Florida. So it's extremely ridiculous. And what that points to me, is complete corruption. The money is there. So we know that the money's there. So it's like de facto corruption. But the education is a problem. Our kids are not going to be able to compete. They're just not,
I know you guys got to go in a minute, and I will just say that I just came across this information earlier today. So now, that guy X Kendi or whatever, who was one of like the leaders of the woke mob for like the past several years. Everybody's a racist, and they had to be teaching.
I'm not on social media. I don't know who this is, but okay.
They were teaching these educational programs, and like that lady, the D'Angelo, they were paying these people exorbitant amounts of money.
So white fragility. Fragility.
So wait for this. You'll love this. So this person is a professor at Harvard. They're in his department that was started, I guess, in like the last 5 years. There's about $40 million of unaccounted money that they don't know where it is.
Yeah, go figure.
It's like how I can only hope. And this is the whole, if there is a silver lining to Trump getting in again, it's this. I hope there's enough people who start to see through the scam, because that's the best thing that we could have.
Our goal is red pilling as many people as possible.
Absolutely.
And when we do that and build the coalition, because that's what needs to happen. We need to stop worrying about the social issues. It's sort of like, I'm not saying they're not important. Like, I know they're important to people, but we've got way big fundamental problems that have to be dealt with before we can deal with that. And then we can deal. Like, I'm always about triage, you know?
I've been saying lately, I'm not red, I'm not blue, I'm just red, white, and blue, and that's just America.
Purple.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. And most of us are in the middle. Let's be honest. Most of us are in the middle. We're not like way far away.
I am definitely a bleeding heart lefty person. I am. I believe everybody deserves a life with dignity. But when it comes to civil liberties, I'm extremely I take that stuff very seriously. So I get along with people on wherever. That's why I don't even like the labels. It doesn't matter. If we agree on these things, we can work on these things. And then I can work on other things with other people. And then if you live in an actual functioning democracy and you recognize that the majority rule is generally the way things should go, and sometimes you get your way and sometimes you don't get your way, and we all just exist. Like, this is how I envision the universe.
You guys bring your people on board to single payer healthcare, and we'll bring our people on to protecting civil liberties in this country. That's
the thing. It comes down to a lot of that. See, I don't have an issue with anybody's Second Amendment.
No,
I'm not myself a gun enthusiast. It's not my thing. Whatever floats your boat. But I'm a cannabis enthusiast.
But I will say this to two Marines: if we did not have the level of gun enthusiasm in this country that we do have, especially from the libertarian movement, this country would have been taken over by the government and the entire apparatus of corporate interest a long fucking time ago. That is the only reason that it hasn't happened. And the scariest part about the liberals in the suburbs is that they literally welcome it. They welcome
and I've said it before, when Armageddon happens, when everything goes to shit, I'm moving where the red people are. I already know where I'm going. I'm going up to the Panhandle. I'm going up near where all
go to Palatka.
There you go. I'm around your kind of people, because I recognize that. But again, I'm very I'm fluid this way.
Listen, I don't know, Brian, I don't even know if you know this, but I actually moved. I'm up in Matt Gaetz territory. I'm over near Destin. And so I got to tell you.
He's in the snow.
I was about to say, did you get snowed on?
I sure did, man. Just check out my Instagram and my LinkedIn. I put it out there. I'm like,
it's really pretty.
Yeah, it was really pretty. And then it's already gone in a day. So it was perfect. We didn't even have to worry about ice and slush and shit.
It's got to be cold up near you too, though, James, no?
It's frigid. We're gonna have
Yeah.
it's gonna dip down in the 30s tomorrow. So
That's a little nippy. That's a little nippy.
yeah, I'm going over to Orlando for a pardon party though. So
okay, wait, is your 18 your oldest and is that the top of your food chain? Okay.
That's the top. And then the bottom of my food chain is in the womb. Is in
utero. I understand.
So let's leave on this note. And from Cajun Fishing Hound in Oklahoma. Oklahoma's the worst in education. They ain't teaching nothing. Students won't get a diploma if not going into a college or tech school. My special needs grandson, a 10th grader, won't be in that number.
Oh, if you're special need, I have a kid that has special education issues. You're screwed in so many places.
I was, as Brian knows, and you now knows, James, I was a huge supporter, especially in 2015 and 2016 of Bernie Sanders. I really appreciated his message. I thought that the biggest mistake he made when it came to education was not leading with trade schools. But I think the fact that we are in a country when people ask, why does education suck so bad? Just look at people like Jeff Bezos. They want that. Look at the Walton family, and especially since you're talking about Oklahoma, just look at the Walton family. They do not want smart people in this country. They want conveyor belt working people. They want people who don't ask questions and will just work to make them rich.
What is knowledge? Knowledge is power. They don't want to give power away.
Nope. I hope this we will do everything in our power to get this message out to as many people. I hope this conversation is seen by a lot of people who have had a complete misconception about both sides this entire time. Because we are.
I just don't think it's, honestly, we need to even stop saying it's sides. And that's part of it too, right? Like there's not sides. The people.
It's not like there's a big gap between us. There's really not.
The people, it's really more of a circle. But the people, it's a fluid circle that are profiting from it are the ones that keep fostering and feeding this tribalism. And that is, to me, the biggest problem. That's what's keeping us from getting any nice things.
Yeah, both of you, and especially James, thank you for coming on for the first time. Hopefully not the last time.
Have fun at your pardon party.
I'll be back. Thank you so much.
And as always, thank you for your service, gentlemen, and thank you for coming.
Thanks, Brian. Bye, guys.
Yep. Take care, guys.
Bye, guys.
So I will say that was a very fun conversation.
Always. The truth is that, and I'm very, very comfortable with that demographic.
And look, if we can't convince Colanello, that's okay, because most of the chat actually thinks we're correct. So that's okay.
Look, everybody has different. I just don't like that we need to fit into one side or another side. We have different opinions on different issues, and that's fluid. And not anybody really should be trying to fit into a box.
And I don't agree with that. I don't think libertarians are hyper-capitalists. I think
he's using Big L. Now, Big L libertarians, the party, I don't agree with a lot of their stuff. They are not. That's the parts where we know that. That's the parts where I obviously do not agree with them. They don't support public education. A lot of them. They don't support healthcare. They don't support those kinds of services. And I've been very clear that that's where we part ways. But when it comes to somebody that I want to support their civil liberties to protest and not be arrested with facial recognition after the fact for not doing anything wrong, that's pretty creepy no matter what side you're on. And I see it happen on the left every bit as much as it might be happening on the right. And that's a problem for all of us. I didn't like when it happened at the BLM events. I didn't like when people instigate and put plants, and there are all sorts of spooks that mixed in the crowd and trying to start a whole bunch of shit to make whatever that position is look like it's the problem. And I know that happens. So once we know that happens, we have to be very aware of what we allow to be the narrative of any particular event, especially one that we're not at. And I wasn't at January 6th. The only footage that I saw was what Jordan had gotten from his guy that was the above the front, the or whatever door that was, whatever angle that was. And the reality is that it makes complete sense to me that people would plant and create all sorts of problems. That's what they do. They have to make those out to be the bad guys. And I'm sure there were people in that crowd that were problem makers. There's always problem makers. But when you take a group of veterans and start with weapons and smoke bombs and instigation, you're going to get a problem. Most of those people have PTSD. You start setting off like different kinds of like grenades and shit. What do you think is going to happen? And then not only do they have PTSD, but thanks to the way we treat them, we don't even give them proper services when they get back. So, I don't know,
But if you did enjoy this conversation, and we're very grateful that you're all here, consider becoming a patron of our channel. Go to patreon.com.
Or just subscribing. Like we just see a nice super chat from Progressive Lefty.
Oh, I didn't even say that yet. I will get to that in a second.
Okay, we'll get to our super chats in a sec.
Could I please?
Sorry.
Patreon.com. You're still doing it. Patreon.com/generational change for as little as $5 a month. You become a supporter of our small but mighty and somewhat argumentative podcast that Jen and I are constantly going back and forth on. And if you are so inclined, any amount of help will obviously continue to facilitate these types of conversations. Jen, there is an event coming up in DC that you may want to consider looking into. Apparently, the Workers' Strike Back event is coming up, I think, in like 3 weeks. So if travel is
I don't know when is that. I don't know when that is.
It's like the second or third week of February, I want to say.
Okay. Well, I will tell you, I'm going up to the camper. Oh, it's this. I don't know. I'll have to see because I have a trip planned that third week, and I don't know that I'm going to be doing back-to-back trips.
Well, I'm going to see if I can get up there. It's not, I mean, I've got some travel coming up, but I would obviously like to be there. If we could both be there, great. Or if at least one of us could be there, that would be great. But yeah,
I'll tell you what, we could help pay for you to go, but it'll depend on when you're like whenever. You'll let me know when it is.
No,
I don't want to do back-to-back trips, and I'm going to be. And now I'm scared because I'm driving up to the camper, and I'm hoping that in a few weeks it's not going to still be snowy in Georgia.
Thank you, Progressive Lefty. I'm new to your channel, and I agree with most of your takes, but I disagree. I will push back. Please. We don't
get
offended here.
No, we don't get offended. And the only rules here is just don't be mean. We don't be mean. We don't be personal. And if anybody insults guests that are on the show, I kick you out of the chat. You know what I mean? Like when you're just being nasty. I'm not talking about, presenting a challenging opinion. That is completely acceptable. We have Welcome Lefty. You'll meet all sorts of people in our chat, ranging from anarchists to conservative, Trumpy, Republicans. We have everybody.
No, we definitely do.
Did you scroll our people?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I did scroll our people. And so when we talk about the stories that really matter, this is a story that really matters. So TikTok has begun removing genocidal comments targeting Jews, including phrases like Free Palestine. The move appears to align with U.S. values and may be an effort to avoid promoting violence while attracting a U.S. buyer. Now, of course, this is all bullshit. The reality is that Free Palestine, the Free Palestine movement, appears to have been one of the conditions to bringing TikTok back online.
Of course.
TikTok was banned. And of course, I want to take all the credit in the world for bringing it back. But the fact is, the reason it came back online is because you knew it had to have some type of negotiation tactic.
And it's only temporary for right now. It's on hold. And I want to say, but if that right there doesn't prove that their real issue is speaking about Palestine and has nothing to do with China, that's it right there. And the fact that they're using it to sort of then foster issues with China, that's a bonus. I find the whole thing is ridiculous, and I don't think it'll go away. They'll come up with some sort of like settlement agreement wherein Trump saves face and they also get what they want without getting rid of TikTok. Like there'll be something. But that concept right there of just saying we can't say Free Palestine. Viva, viva Palestina.
Free Palestine. And I have to tell you, thank you so much, Sable. I really appreciate it.
That's one of the things. Viva, viva Palestina.
So I highly doubt that the person that I was dealing with earlier today from a work perspective would even have any clue about a show like this. So I'm just going to say it. I have a very different attitude. Look, there was always something about the Israeli culture that I never particularly liked or enjoyed. I could tell that they were very incestuous and very egotistical, rude.
They're no more incestuous than any insulated community,
Well, the difference, though, is that they are embedded in my world. Like they have a major foothold in the world that I'm in. And
they're just extremely entitled people. They're very entitled people. I've noticed that my whole life.
And this is probably true. We'll need some verification on it, but I have no doubt that it's probably the case.
They're going to start clearing there and north. They're also going north. They're going into Syria.
So even if you do so what is the point of a ceasefire in Gaza if you're just going to do the exact same thing in the West Bank?
Well, they're not going to follow the ceasefire in Gaza either.
We're not going to do that either.
Well, that's my whole point. Is what is the point of any agreement with a country that doesn't honor agreements? What is the point of that? They're not going to stop. Now, they're going to keep apparently doing these frequent or occasional prisoner exchanges over the next however many phases of this agreement. But at the end of the day, for them, they're not going to stop. Israel's not going to stop. They're not stopping because we don't want them to stop.
So I also want to say that it was when I was getting on the phone today I had a thing that I needed to do for business this afternoon. And so I called up because I was having an issue with the Zoom link that I was trying to connect with, and I wasn't sure what the issue was. So I called up and the assistant said, "Oh, he's in Israel right now. So we'll have to, connect you a different way." And I just thought, oh, I don't apologize.
What did he say?
The assistant said that he was in Israel and that he was probably having a connection issue. So we'll see if there's another way to get it fixed.
And you didn't realize that he was somebody that would be in Israel? Is he not Israeli?
No, I thought he was in Brooklyn. No, not Brooklyn. I thought he was in I'm not going to say where, but let's just say it's a very.
But he lives in Israel, is what you're saying?
No, I think he's visiting.
Oh, so he could be anybody that's just visiting there. Is what?
Yeah, no, he lives in New Jersey. He lives in a very Jewish part of New Jersey, and so I didn't really think anything of it. But once he said that he was in Israel, I was just like, oh God!
It's just so I know.
It is. And you could say, oh, that's anti-Semitic. No, actually it's not, because the only people who are going to Israel right now are people who fully embrace what the fuck's going on right now.
Whether they're Christians or Jews. You've got people like friggin' Mike Huckabee. Exactly. It has nothing.
Like Mike, I am praying for the rapture in my lifetime, Huckabee.
He won't even say Palestine or Palestinians. He's like Debbie.
No, he says it's no such thing.
No, it's Judea Samara. Yeah, from your Bible. Oh my God. Anybody who, if your reference of geopolitics includes a biblical reference, then we're done speaking. We have nothing to talk about. But that's the perspective.
And that's the whole thing about the TikTok ban. It's as I've said, and what makes it even more interesting, and this is where the whole story kind of comes together when you're talking about Luigi Mangione. Remember, Luigi's story is still very strong, and we're going to continue to talk about it. But make no mistake, it was strongest on TikTok. That's where so much of that story kept facilitating. And then if you remember what we talked about on the last show and why you've got Red Note that's out there, what you're seeing from a lot of people over in China as they communicate with us, they're looking at us saying, guys, why in the hell don't you have healthcare? We Chinese, we have healthcare. What's going on in your country?
He's becoming like a little bit of a folk hero in China.
He is. How is he not a folk hero at this point?
He's going to be, well, first of all, I mean, the whole Luigi thing, it's kind of like he's meant to be a little like emoji folk hero for China. That's what it almost, like, he's perfect for it.
Humorous. Thank you so much for the $5.
Humorous and Cat are having a spat.
They're having a spat. I apologize for
everybody play nice. No, they're being civil, but there's definitely and Willie says something interesting, which is that, which we've said before, is Christian Zionists are the most toxic form of Zionism. And it is. They are.
Yeah, probably.
Because they actually want us to be there so that we could all die and they could have the rapture. They're not wanting it for a safe space for Jews, which is why Jewish Zionists, even though I don't agree with them, many of them, it's based on fear and need of safety and worrying about what's going to happen to them. So it isn't wishing for the world destruction.
I guess me, myself, and I doesn't know me too well. But thank you. I appreciate it. I'm probably more Christ-like than most people. So.
I'm a big fan of Jesus. I
Jesus? You like Jesus?
I do like Jesus. Don't mess with the Jesus.
Don't mess with the Jesus.
Don't mess with the Jesus.
8-year-olds, dude. 8-year-olds, dude.
Peter finally watched Best in Show and Galaxy Quest. I'm very proud of you.
Yes.
Did you like Galaxy Quest?
Galaxy Quest was very funny.
I told you.
Very funny. That was
I told you.
It was more even when you saw Rainn Wilson, and of course this was before, this was before The Office. So this movie's going back to like the late 90s.
It was so funny, that movie. Guys, we're talking about Galaxy Quest. If you have not seen it, I highly recommend. Yeah, I know. It's just so freaking fun. First of all, Tony Shalhoub and Alan Rickman, to me, like those two, it was just
the thing about Rickman is that, and I actually saw Michael Collins.
See, everybody loves Galaxy Quest.
There's no way to explain how great of an actor Alan Rickman was, and how he also could laugh at himself because he's
so friggin' funny.
Such a Brit in so many ways. I don't really want to he's like, I don't want to get my hands dirty. It's like, why do people love this stuff so much?
Sam Rockwell, the whole thing. It was all good.
No, it was. And it was a very, it's silly, but it was funny. It was done well. It was.
And yes, Henry, Best in Show is a Christopher Guest movie from the same people. This is Spinal Tap. Also Mighty Wind, Waiting for Guffman. There've been, it's brilliant. But to me, Best in Show is the best. That to me is just the best.
Well, I thought Mr. Ward's performance as the announcer was the most enjoyable.
He was good. He was good. Yeah.
And of course, anytime you're doing it to spite the British snoot is, well, I don't know if that's the reason they were doing that, but it's certainly possible.
You're talking about what's his name? Fred Willard.
Yes. Yes, he was great. He was great in that role. I didn't enjoy Best in Show as much.
Well, it's a totally different vibe. You're comparing apples and oranges. It's a completely different movie.
I will tell you that to me, the funniest
Parker Posey with the busy bee and the Weimaraner and the braces and the whole thing. You're right. It was just,
No, I think personally, I think that the funniest part of Best in Show was at the very beginning when they have the dog on the therapy couch. Like that whole thing, just the way they laid that out with Parker.
It's just all so good. All of it. Michael McKean and that other guy with the Shih Tzus, with the kimono, the guy with the kimonos. He didn't pack enough kimonos. Like, I can't. Eugene Levy with the 2 left feet. God loves a terrier. I can't, like, Best in Show to me is one of those that it's up there with like Lebowski in terms of, I have a lot of like very common quotes and thoughts of it. Well, if you haven't seen Best in Show, I highly recommend.
Well, that's just
like a good movie reviews.
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man. Well, guys, listen, I would totally be open to doing, if you want to do that every once in a while, Jen, where we could discuss like a popular movie. It could be politically related. It could be, we could get into it. I think it would be fun to talk about.
It depends on what it is, and it needs to be something that if I've already seen or I want to see. I'm not going to force myself to watch something I don't want to see. So and that's the thing when you do reviews, sometimes you sit there and watch shit and you don't like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah. So
if it's something I want to see, we could.
And the one thing I will say related to the Zionists and the whole the evangelism and the connection with the very Zionistic Jewish population is, Jen and I both agreed there is really nothing to discuss pertaining to the bishop who wanted to moralize on Trump the other day. But the one thing that I will say regarding that is the fact that Trump is Episcopalian. And not a lot of people know that Episcopalian makes up a very small percentage of the actual Christian population in this country.
It's Catholic light. It's Catholics that get divorced. But the reality is he's not in anything.
No. And that's the thing.
What do you mean he's an Episcopalian in terms of he was baptized Episcopalian? Like, what do you mean he's Episcopalian? In what way is he Episcopalian?
Well, listen, he didn't even put his hand on the Bible. Did people I
appreciate. I do. They shouldn't even be offering that anyway. That needs to be taken out of the whole element.
But the whole backlash against the bishop wasn't even so much about her moralizing. It's this idea that the Episcopal Church doesn't have the right to say anything because they're not really Christians. It's either the Protestant Church or the Catholic Church. That is the only one that has the right to what's the right word? ponta. There's like a specific word for that.
Pontificate.
No, it's not pontificate. Apostolize. Would that be appropriate?
I don't know. I'm a Jew. I don't know your Gentile lingo.
I apologize, but no, I'm just saying.
Growing up Jewish, it's just all Gentiles are basically the same. And to me, I didn't really understand the difference until I was a lot older. And now I do, because I've spent a lot of time in Catholic communities. That's
a good one. Apostolistic. So they apostolize. They apostolize, I think is how you say it. About the gospel, about what they believe is right and what isn't right. And Episcopal, as I'm sure Willie could espouse to, is definitely much more of a liberal-minded form of Christianity, particularly.
Yes, it was created so there could be a divorce. That was the whole friggin' point.
Well, that was actually not what unless Episcopalian and the Church of England is the same thing, which it would.
That's Anglican.
Well, Anglican, that was what Henry VIII created the Church of England specifically so that he could get divorced, to break away from Catholicism. That's how it happened. And there's
something else that happened like that I'm telling you. Willie, put it in the chat. Why are you, Willie, put it in the chat. We're Episcopalian. Give the brief.
When you're Episcopalian, you're both Protestant and Reformed Catholic.
This is what I'm saying. It's Catholic light. That's what I'm saying to you.
Did you know that Catholics are the only ones who believe in the Virgin Mary?
You mean other than I believe in the Virgin Mary?
You do, just for shits and giggles, right? Of course,
just for shits and giggles.
That would be the good reason.
I believe in Mary. I don't think she was a virgin.
How does
I think she was Arabic. You know,
yes.
I think she was brown like Jesus.
Do you think Luigi's a good Catholic? Do you think that that's possible?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, does he consider himself a practicing Catholic? Or is he a cafeteria Catholic? Like the Catholics that I know are pretty much cafeteria Catholics. Do you know what that is, right? You pick and choose. You pick and choose the parts you like.
Mary is the most holy woman in Islam.
Yes.
Interesting.
I knew that, and I get that.
Thanks again, Progressive Lifty, for the $5. Religion was created by the ruling class to control the masses. I think in many ways, what Mangione represents is the most.
Look.
Well, there you go, Mr. Hitchens.
There he is. There he is.
Very cool. No, I think in many ways, Mangione is, I guess, kind of like he's almost like a Moses in a way, if you think about it. You know, he's basically trying to be the sheep herder, but he's trying to lead the sheep to salvation. He was showing you that even if the spilling of blood, which has been talked about constantly in the Bible, for anybody here who has any type of a religious background, you would know that there is much of that talk, in much as it is in the Old Testament as it is in the New Testament, specifically the story of Abraham. And when you talk about, was Abraham willing to sacrifice his own son for the glorification of God?
You're speaking Bible talk to me.
I'm only speaking it because of this whole idea of, oh, Luigi, he killed him. He did. Well, let's just, again, allegedly.
Yeah. But I'm willing to even stipulate, even if we're going to say that he did. And your point is, I would argue it's an interesting case of self-defense and defense of others. Onward.
I would say that too. And that's why if anybody's been paying attention, there has been constant stories coming out recently, more so than the ones that we've even been putting out. Because as it turns out, there is very, very loud talk now about jury nullification. And why would they be doing that? The reason they're doing it is because they probably already know that this story is heading in that direction, that they're going to have a very hard time getting a jury to convict this man.
And I'm talking any venue. They could get a change of venue to the other side of the country, and they're not going to be able to find somebody that'll have an unbiased opinion about the healthcare industry. It doesn't matter where they go.
This is now in Yahoo News. Okay, when this starts floating at this level, how jury nullification could set Luigi Mangione free in United Health CEO murder case, it's because it's probably been discussed at length now that they do not have that it's almost impossible. The amount of work that they have probably been going through trying to find jurors that either haven't heard about this story or are not sympathetic to somebody who stood up to the for-profit health system.
Well, they haven't started jury selection, have they?
I don't know.
No, they haven't started jury selection yet. No. That hasn't started yet.
Well, let's.
They have not started jury selection yet. Do they even have they set a trial date? When's the trial date?
Why would an outlet like Yahoo News already be giving the indication that this case is likely heading for nullification?
Because they know that it is. I don't see how they're going to be able to. This is why this can't go to trial. I'm telling you, I'm worried about this kid.
Well, this is also why I felt it's necessary to say, to both Brian and James, that you guys, you get on board with single payer. It's incredible how far we'll go. It really is. And we have to deal with the fact that the biggest reason we probably don't have single payer isn't necessarily just because of the for-profit health system. That's all interconnected with agriculture. It's all interconnected with how bad our food is, how unhealthy we are. And I do believe that the message that RFK had put out there pertaining to what is in our food and what we have to do to fix that is going to help facilitate a movement towards a healthier country. And a movement towards a healthier country gets us closer to a single payer healthcare system.
So what are they saying in this? And this is current? This just is a new article?
This came out earlier today.
Okay. So is there, so there's obviously some reason that they're putting this out there right now.
Well, Karen Friedman Agnifilo, his attorney, fears her client will get a fair trial in a New York City courtroom. Back in late December, the defense attorney argued government officials have been making prejudicial statements about Luigi, of course. Mangione is being treated as a spectacle. Well, of course, with authorities putting him on display in the biggest staged perp walk I've ever seen in my career. Of course, that was the idea. I think the whole image of Mayor Adams walking behind him was one of the stupidest things that could have ever been done. But no one knows what the jury will do. In recent weeks, there's been speculation that the Maryland native, who's experienced a swell of popularity and support on social media amid growing criticism concerning the tactics employed by insurance companies to deny care, could be set free. Experts point to a phenomenon known as jury nullification, which happens when a jury might believe a defendant committed a crime, but votes to acquit anyway. I think that that's actually what happened in OJ's case. It's a reaction by the jury to a legal result that they feel would be so unjust or morally wrong that they refuse to impose it, despite what the law says. I think that's what it's all about. Sympathy.
What is this? Yeah. So, all right. I wasn't sure if you were done. You're not.
The jury selection process is designed to weed out who won't be impartial. However, Clay S. Conrad, author of Jury Nullification, The Evolution of a Doctrine, says it would not surprise me at all if one or more people get onto the jury who support him. Absolutely. Even so, some legal experts doubt a jury would set a killer free in the face of compelling evidence. Most of us hate insurance companies and have difficult experiences dealing with insurance companies, but that doesn't mean we think people should be going around murdering insurance executives in the street, says Gregory German, a Syracuse University College of Law professor. I would imagine some people are going to be paying him a visit in class and letting them know what they think of him.
No, what he's saying is correct. I mean, this is what you need to be saying. That's the proper thing to say. Keep reading.
Sure. Mangione, who's pleaded not guilty to state murder and terrorism charges, again, the overreach, and next month is expected to enter a plea. So in February, this is going to happen. Is expected to,
that's just his plea, and then they'll set a trial date.
Correct. To enter a plea in a parallel federal murder case could also, of course, be acquitted or convicted based strictly on the evidence. According to the police, that includes a 3D printed gun. We saw a 3D printed gun a couple of years ago. It was very interesting, and it's unbelievable what can be done.
Who saw that?
We did.
You and me?
Yes.
I saw that?
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember.
When we went to the compound?
Oh, is that? I don't remember. I wasn't paying attention. I'm sorry.
Well,
I
I
wasn't.
did. I
Sorry.
was
Well,
like, oh no, this is. I was like, oh, this is real. This is a gun. That
I
included
didn't.
a 3D printed gun found in his backpack that matches shell casings discovered at the crime scene, plus fingerprints taken from a water bottle, and protein bar wrapper discarded nearby. No one really knows how a jury will ultimately react to a perceived modern-day Robin Hood like Mangione. I have never seen a criminal defendant, much less an accused murderer, received as much sympathy both on traditional media and social media. Former federal prosecutor Nima Rahmani marvels. He is a folk hero of sorts to many.
They're not going to be. Again, I've been saying it since the beginning. Good luck. Good luck finding a jury. And yes, granted, I do recognize that his attorney, as well as she should, is arguing the other side of that he can't get a fair trial because of how they're portraying him. That's her job to do so. And that is correct. They are doing that. However, I think that the problem is definitely more on their end, on the prosecutor side, and being able to get a jury that will convict him. I don't see it. I also do agree that there will be people that will get onto that jury and hide the fact that
hang it. And they'll hang it 100%. Yeah.
And I don't see how they're going to be able to.
Too big of a story. You can't hide it.
I am an attorney. Somebody's asking. I am. I don't generally talk about that, but
I remember from the time, even when I was young, that the O.J. Simpson case was over before it even started because they tried it in Los Angeles and not in Brentwood. And
I don't think it would have mattered. I don't
know about that. It certainly could have been different, but you also are of the mind that Simpson had a great defense team and the prosecution.
Oh no, I know he had a great defense team, but that's
because
also not the
was
issue.
supposed
The
to take
issue
that
is their
case and he
evidence
didn't
was
take it.
tainted. Their evidence was screwed up.
Yeah.
They had so many problems with their case. And honestly, from the very beginning, my dad called it. It's really interesting. As soon as that case got assigned to Marcia Clark, my dad called me instead of it being Garcetti doing it himself. As soon as that case got assigned to her, my dad called and said, yeah, they have nothing. They're not going to be able to convict him. So to me, I sort of expected that with the OJ case. But this, they're not going to, they have, the difference is the OJ case is not on camera. They really do have this kid with a lot of good, they would be able to put together a really good case if it were not for the fact that the person that he killed was a complete piece of shit and nobody cares. Because otherwise, if this were just any other random murder, they'd have him, there's no way a jury would let him walk. But that's what the nullification is that there will be people that do recognize that he did it and they just don't give a shit. And that's the problem with this case. And there's no way they're going to be able to keep all 12 people on a jury, from having a bias. I don't see it.
I agree. Humorous with the $10. Thank you so much, young lady. I am not in a spat with anyone. You are misinterpreting a conversation that is incredibly interesting to me because I'm talking to younger people. Well, Humorous, we appreciate you being here. And if you are going to contribute, it is tremendously appreciated as well.
I think he's talking with Kat. I don't know. There's something going on there.
Well, and as Colinello says, I hope you're right, Jen. We do.
I'm just concerned for his safety in the meantime, because I do not think the powers that be do not want this to go to trial.
No,
because if it goes to trial, not only will it be a media circus, but everybody's horror stories and every little thing. This is not what the industry wants. This is not what Capital wants. And then if he gets, acquitted, then you've just basically given a green light to everybody in this country to just kill whichever CEOs are committing violence.
Better give us that single payer healthcare system if you don't want to have to worry about that.
The easier way to go. We could have done it the easy way.
I'm just saying. So we've got one more story before we go.
Okay.
Of course, I could put on the mask if you'd like me to. Would that be? I'll put it on at the end.
I don't care. Wait, I'm not sure which story what we're talking about.
The only person who has addressed anything related to what Trump is doing right now in terms of the negative. We have many stories that our good friend Harvey K brought to our attention pertaining to what Trump is actually doing, which is not good. Any of the marginal benefits that came with very limited prescription drug price caps, especially on insulin, it doesn't mean anything if you don't have a single payer system. These are all things that can get reversed, and they will continue to be reversed. So Bernie really lays out what we as a populist left movement need to be looking for. It really is a testament to how he still has it, even if he is an old man and he just doesn't have the fight that he had even 10 years ago, which is fine. But he's still our Yoda, our Obi-Wan Kenobi, if you will. So here's Bernie.
I was at the Trump inauguration yesterday, and needless to say, I disagree with much of what he had to say. But what really struck me, however, is not what he said, which was not surprising given his rhetoric, but what he didn't say, The simple truth is that Donald Trump gave a major speech, the first speech of his second presidency, and ignored virtually every important issue facing the working families of this country. How crazy is that? Our healthcare system is broken, is dysfunctional, and it's wildly expensive. Not one word from Trump about how he is going to address the healthcare crisis.
Who else besides you is going to talk about it, Bernie? Kamala Harris sure as shit didn't say anything about it, or your good friend Joe. They didn't say a word. Maybe if they weren't bought and paid for by more billionaires than Trump and the Republicans are, they might have actually mentioned, yeah, we're the only developed country in the world that doesn't have health care. So that's
you guys are right. It's controlled opposition. Bernie's controlled opposition. But it's annoying to me in that he says this as if this is somehow unique.
It's
like
not,
what you're saying, I don't recall him calling them out for not doing anything.
That's the problem. Now, he's not wrong with what he's saying, but you can't only see one side of it. That's the problem. There is a reason Trump gets there. Trump gets there because the system's broken and the Democrats are more guilty than Republicans. Because the Republicans come through the front door, the Democrats tries to sneak out the back door and do the same shit.
We pay by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs, sometimes 10 times more than the people in other countries. And 1 out of 4 Americans are unable to afford the prescriptions that their doctors prescribe. Not one word in his speech on the high cost of prescription drugs. We have 800,000 Americans who are homeless and millions of people spending 50 or 60% of their limited income on housing. We have a major housing crisis in America. Everybody knows it. And Trump, in his inaugural address, did not devote one word to it. Today in America, we have more income and wealth inequality than we have ever had. The wealthiest 3 people in America now own more wealth than the bottom half of our society. But Trump had nothing to say, not one word, about the growing gap between the very rich and everybody else. And maybe, just maybe, that's because he had those 3 people, the 3 wealthiest people in our country, sitting right behind them at his inauguration.
Is there any reason to believe if Kamala won that she wouldn't have had similar optics or even worse optics?
No, I don't understand why, this is silly to me.
We're not going to get to address it tonight because it's a story that will evolve because Vivek is going to announce his candidacy for governor in the state of Ohio very soon. We'll get to the fact that he's already out of Doge. Jen, you could take a victory lap. You said he'd be the first one out.
If you guys don't know what we're talking about, I did call when Trump first appointed the cabinet people that not only will none of them make it 1 year, but I did call that Vivek would be the first one to drop. So I'm just saying, yeah. Peter called me. He's like, I should bet odds on what you say. What did you say to me?
Yeah, I said you could definitely take a lap. You did say that Vivek would be the first one out, and he couldn't even last 24 hours. I mean, that was fast.
That's definitely faster than I expected.
And you even said, okay, so Trump has, Bezos, Zuckerberg, and Musk standing behind him, but you insist that these guys really hate each other. This is all dick measuring for them. They all want to be the biggest swinging dick in the room. Yep. They don't give a damn about it. It's honestly, it's partially it's playing God if you're somebody like Bill Gates, but for these guys, it's not even about money. It's all about ego. It's about being the number one.
Yeah.
And they're there basically to kiss Trump's ass and see who's going to get the next, I don't know, contract for space.
None of them, like, those are not the kind of people that have real friends.
No. How could they?
No, that's way too much ego. That amount of ego cannot get along with each other. That doesn't work. That's why I thought Vivek would be the first one to go.
That to
Musk
me
is too financially invested because he's too financially invested to be out so soon, which is why I predicted Vivek.
It's the same thing. I still think Musk is nowhere near as dangerous as Miriam Adelson, and that's who we really need to keep an eye on. Just like, we covered what happened earlier. So when Bernie is waxing poetic about the fact that Trump had billionaires behind him, Bernie, again, it'd be one thing if the Democrats did not have the same problem, if not an even bigger one.
How many billionaires donated to Kamala?
83. How many donated to Trump? 51.
And by the way, Bernie, those same exact ones standing behind Trump would be there if it were Kamala.
100%. And not only
they might not be on camera, but they'd be there. They'd be present. They'd be participating.
And let's not forget, Kamala received almost 3 times as much campaign contributions. And this was in 100 days that she got this money. So the argument has to be framed not as Trump is this and that. It has to be the system is this and that. That's what it is.
And I should add that those 3 people, if you can believe it, and this really is unbelievable, saw their wealth increase by more than $233 billion since the November elections. How's that? $233 billion increase in wealth for the 3 wealthiest people.
Because the system's broken and it will not sustain itself. It's not real. This is all fake. The truly richest person in America is really Warren Buffett because his wealth is in actual hard assets. He owns real estate. He owns things. These are tech billionaires.
Gates owns real estate.
I'm sorry?
Gates owns plenty of real estate.
Oh, he most certainly does. And that's really where Bezos' wealth comes into play. Those monstrosity distribution warehouse centers, like the one that we have in Miramar, Florida, that's where Bezos' wealth really lies. It's in those industrial distribution centers. Those are tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars in value. That's where his money is.
No wonder they were sitting right behind Donald Trump at his inauguration. They couldn't be happier. During his inaugural speech, Trump did not have one word to say about how we're going to address the planetary crisis of climate change.
What did Joe say about it?
The last 10 years have been the warmest years ever recorded, and extreme weather disturbances and natural disasters are taking place all over the world, from Los Angeles to India, across Europe to North Carolina. Not one word from Trump about climate change, except, of course, to make it clear that he intends to make this horrific situation even worse with drill, baby, drill.
All right. And what has Joe done?
Nothing.
No, Joe has drilled more and issued more permits and done more in his administration than Trump did before.
That's true. And so when the liberals come out at the 11 o'clock hour saying that Biden nixed a land drilling permit right before he walked out the door, my attitude is, okay, that's nice, but what about all the others that he approved over the last 4 years? Okay, so we stopped Trump from doing one project. You think that's good? That makes up any of the difference of the ones
And
that he
my understanding about that is that it was a project that wasn't going to go through anyway. There was something else about that project that made it a safe one for him to say, I don't want that. There, it wasn't just, it had nothing to do with like care of the environment.
Yeah, things got so much worse environmentally under Biden, like in an absolutely astronomical way. And that's not even addressing the things that took place under his watch, like East Palestine and Kalamazoo and Jackson, Mississippi. And technically, if we're really going to go in on it, Los Angeles, California. This is all on Joe's watch. Now you could say
I'm not going to go with that with the forest fires, but yeah.
There's a lot of things that they could have been doing to mitigate those problems in California.
I agree to some extent. And then if anybody else watches Kim Iverson, go watch her take on the fires. And then I would just say ditto. Like, I think there's a lot of personal accountability. I think there's a lot of different things that we're not talking about. And we want to just put the blame on government. And I don't agree in all cases. And I think this is one of those. So it's nuanced.
Good point, Kat. There's also the issue with the lithium battery fires. Let's continue.
Just brilliant. In the coming months and years, our job is not just to respond to every absurd statement that Donald Trump makes.
That'd be nice.
Our job is to stay focused on the issues that are of importance to the working families of our country, and in fact are widely supported by the American people. Let me just mention a few of them. Yes, healthcare is a human right, and we must join every other major country in guaranteeing healthcare to all people through a Medicare for all single-payer program. Healthcare is a human right. Yes, we must take on the greed of Big Pharma and substantially lower the cost of prescription drugs in this country. Yes, we must build millions of units of affordable housing and low-income housing. Yes, we must make sure that all of our young people have the ability to get a higher education by making public colleges and universities tuition-free. Yes, we must work with the global community to combat climate change by cutting carbon emissions and transforming our energy system away from fossil fuel and into sustainable energy.
All right, hold on. Stop for a second.
We must pass legislation.
All right, first I wanted to address this because we're getting like good super chats. So I want to at least be addressing them while it's still pertinent to the conversation that we're having before we move on. So my good friend Joe Biden, who I will never call out, Bernie turned out to be a joke. And yes, I used to like him. And, you know, we've called him out plenty and we're doing that now. But at the end of the day, there's no one else talking about these issues.
No one.
That in that position, there's nobody talking about it at all. So that is why he gets the floor. And then there was a follow-up comment that I want to.
Bernie is going to do things.
And I agree. Bernie is so fake. He did not call out the billionaires, the DNC convention. I agree with that. I don't know that Bernie's necessarily fake, but that he does pick and choose and selectively call out certain things. And that's one of our biggest problems with him as well.
Oh, I agree.
Legislation to raise the absurdly low federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour to a living wage of $17 an hour. Anybody who works 40 hours a week in this country should not be living in poverty. Yes, we must pass the PRO Act and make it easier for workers to join trade unions.
I don't recall him nagging at Joe.
The trade union movement in America.
I recall him saying Joe was so good on labor. Meanwhile, Joe campaigned on the PRO Act, and then I don't ever recall them talking about it again.
Anybody anybody who wants to suggest, and listen, we have been very adamant about what did Biden actually do that was good. I mean, again, he will go down as a failure as a president, like an absolute failure.
He's going to go down linked to genocide.
But when you're being objective and you could say, well, is there anything that Biden actually did good? Yes. Lena Khan was good. Improvements in the NLRB was good. Allowing the UAW to negotiate their contracts was good. Joe Biden became the first president since Reagan to break a strike. There is no coming back from something like that. Especially a Democratic
just don't
president.
get to claim that you're good for labor when labor in this country is dying.
And when Sean O'Brien, the head of the Teamsters, which I believe at one time or another, with 1.3 million members, is the biggest union by population in the country, decides that I have to go speak at the RNC. If that's not a sign, I don't know what the fuck you're looking at.
Yeah.
Yes. In order to help fund the needs of working families in this country, we must demand that the wealthiest people in this country, including those individuals sitting right beside Donald Trump at his inaugural, start paying their fair share of taxes. Yes, we must end a corrupt campaign finance system which allows a handful of billionaires to buy elections and move us rapidly into an oligarchic form of society. Bottom line, as we enter the new Trump presidency, we have got to remain focused. We cannot panic. No matter how many executive orders he signs, and no matter how many absurd statements he makes, our goal remains the same. We have got to educate, we have got to organize, we've got to put pressure on Congress to do the right things. And by the way, with Republicans only holding a 3 or 4 seat advantage in the House, we can stop them time and time again if we are organized. Finally, my friends, we have got to fight to create an America based on economic, social, racial, and environmental justice. That's what we've got to work on. Let's go forward. Let's do it. Thank you.
You know, I want to share this one sentiment about our upcoming congressional election, which will take place on Tuesday, and Jimmy Petronas is going to win. He will be the next.
And for people who, you can't just assume everybody knows what you're talking about. Give a little bit of a backstory.
So I am in Florida's first congressional district, the one that has been vacated by Matt Gaetz, and we will have a new congressman who will be elected via primary because this is a plus 20R district on Tuesday. So that is when our special election is coming up. But for all intents and purposes, the CFO of the state of Florida, Jimmy Petronas, who is a decent guy, I like him, he's going to win, and he will be the next congressman. He not only has Trump's endorsement, but he was able to raise $1 million for this race. The next closest competitor to him is former House Representative Rudman, who has raised about 150,000, 200,000, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Granted, he also probably had a head start because he knew it was coming.
That's true. And then
he had a heads up that Matt Gaetz was going to be, like, he knew the whole thing was coming probably.
Yeah, and it was like 150,000, like something like that. And then Aaron Dimmock, who had ran previously against him, he had about 130,000, something like that.
Not even close.
I said from the beginning, just knowing that it was most likely going to be the three of them. And then there's this one wealthy guy over in Pensacola who decided to put like 400,000 into the race. But it's obvious that Petronas is going to win. Now, why do I bring this up? I bring it up because while Petronas has obviously raised the most amount of money, you know who's raised the second most amount of money in this particular race? The Democrat who's running on the other side.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
How a person who is going to lose this race by 30 points is able to raise the second most amount of money for this race?
Because a whole bunch of tools are sent. I bet you. And the majority of that fundraising is coming from not that district.
Not a chance.
It's coming from all these liberal tools that think they're going to actually get somewhere by doing
I got one of the text messages. Hey, I'm running against I'm running against Matt Gaetz' old. We're going to flip this thing.
Oh, for God's sake.
You know, that probably goes out to all the old grannies who are Democrats who have
I say it all the time. If you are giving money to a candidate that also takes corporate money, you are a moron. It's that simple. You giving money to somebody that's not a grassroots person is a joke. They're taking it from both ends.
What if you're giving money to a candidate that has no chance of winning?
Well, again, that's different depending on why. Like, for example, I supported Dr. West. All right. So there's cases where you want somebody's message and you want their campaign and you want them to start some sort of movement. And so we've said it before that a campaign is useful in those cases. But in the case of somebody giving money to, if you're just a regular working person and you're giving money to a candidate that takes corporate and PAC money, you're stupid. Now, if you're a working person and you're giving money to a grassroots candidate who doesn't take money from those other places, that makes sense. That's being part of the solution. I just don't be tools, people. Don't be tools for capital.
And unfortunately, there are way too many that are and still trying to break them out of it. But when I saw that number on the Florida Politics website, I just said,
who is it? Do we even know who it is?
No.
It doesn't even matter. If you have given money to the Democrat running for Matt Gaetz' seat, you really need to seek some help. You really need to seek some help.
You are. You're a dupe. Like, there's just no other way around it.
Or or running against Marjorie Taylor Greene,
yeah,
or any of those other ridiculous things.
Or the lady who ran in Kentucky for the Senate. Her name's slipping me right now, but she's the lady who was in the Air Force and she ran against
McGrath.
Yeah. And do you know that McGrath was funding Trump ads in Iowa and Ohio? That's where all that money was cut.
I sent her money at the very first beginning when I saw the first ad. And then I sent her like $5. And then after that, when I looked and I saw who it was, I'm like, oh, forget this check.
Well, of course, I'm still in the Senate because of people like those idiots.
Oh, it's so unfortunate.
And I'm not saying that Charles would have.
But I also got behind Charles Booker as soon as I saw him, too.
But Charles would have been infinitely more formidable if he was the nominee.
Yeah.
They just can't have that.
Yeah.
It's just how it is.
I didn't support her once Charles Booker was in the race.
No. But that's why we do what we do. Our goal is to try to transform politics into service. And by service, we also are doing our best to educate people about the realities of the political system. When you see constantly candidates being thrown up in front of you that get a lot of media attention, particularly ones that ran against Lauren Boebert, that didn't work. Ones against Marjorie Taylor.
That is at least a flippable seat, though.
At least it was flippable, yes. It wasn't completely out of left field.
Yeah.
When you have people throwing money at campaigns on the Republican side, thinking that they're going to unseat Maxine Waters in East LA, when you have people throwing money in races against Marjorie Taylor Greene in Northwest Georgia, thinking that that's going to get her out. Remember, the goal is the never-ending consultant class grift of continuing to make money through gullible people in politics. That's it. And a lot of people get taken big time. But as Mark Twain said, it is easier to fool someone than to convince them they're being fooled. And even then, they don't want to admit that they've been fooled.
No, it's embarrassing. And plus, then you really have to have your come to Jesus moment as to, okay, well, if everything I basically believe is not true, then what does that mean? And then you have to really see that we're in a shit show. And not everybody is willing to really acknowledge that. It's like, we're slowly coaxing people over with the red pills. We got to just give as many red pills out as we possibly can. People, if you're new here, please hit subscribe. Please like. Yeah. And if you want to support what we're doing, please subscribe. And you can also support us at patreon.com/generational-change for as little as $5 a month. And yeah, I also have it set up there that if you want to make a one-time donation, you actually can go into our store and make a one-time donation. There's a way to do it. So.
Couldn't have said it better, Daryl.
All right. Well, you got to read it.
Ted Cruz thanked the Democrats for spending so much money against him, as that wasted money on his race instead of spending it on many other races they could have.
That's their MO. They did in Florida, the amount of money they put behind Val Demings instead of running for potential.
Marshall Powell. 100%.
Yeah.
Remember when they said, "Oh yeah, we're going to throw money behind McChrystal Powell. We think that we have an opportunity there."
They put money behind somebody that lost her congressional seat after one term, lost her congressional seat, couldn't keep her district, and they put her up for a statewide race.
Yeah, well, we all know that Florida's effed, but hopefully we would understand that the Democratic Party is really what's effed. It is the future.
Yeah,
that we need to stay focused on.
What do we have coming up?
Monday night, 9 p.m., perhaps one of our last shows at 9 p.m., but 9 p.m. Monday night, we will have Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks for the first time. He has been very gracious in platforming Jen on multiple occasions. We will return the favor. We'll also try to figure out.
And we're not going to be mean and nasty in our chat.
No, we're going to figure out ways to continue to drive traffic from his channel to our channel. And
yeah, that's something I want people also to understand. Like when people give us a hard time for either bringing someone on or for me going on a platform, like whenever you hear that kind of crap, it's like that helps build our channel too, right? And what we're trying to do is spread messages of, love and joy to all.
Honesty and truth. That's where it's at.
Thank you, Brett Boyle.
That's a great.
I watch a lot of political channels. Jen and Pete are probably one of, if not my favorite. They have great conversations, guests, and allow a very open forum. I appreciate that. We try, and we try not to be, hacks.
Don't skip the live show.
I did reach out to an author of a book I just read, and we'll see if I get a response and to invite her to come on.
Well, it'll be an interesting conversation. We have lots of interesting conversations coming up, including Sabby Sabs. It's going to be good, guys. It's going to be a good year, and we got a growing channel. We're extremely appreciative for each and every one of you that are there. Thank you, Sisyphean. You guys always, it's always great to have the support, because without you, the channel can't grow. So it is the audience. You guys do make it possible. So Rashnu, Progressive Lefty, Bruce Carter, Jimmy Zimzam, Schultzy, Sisyphean, all of you guys, Henry Kajawa, Daryl Riley.
So the red pill is, I don't know if you're asking literally or metaphorically, but the red pill is a reference from the Matrix. But what?
I'm just calling out names. Denise Columbia. It's snarky. Right.
So, but the concept is the red pill allows people to see the facade and the man behind the curtain. And you see that we're basically wage slaves living in an oligarchy being controlled by, capital. And when we realize that, and the more of us will actually, it's ironic that the name of the place is Zion in the Matrix, that's the good place to be. But like our goal is to red pill as many people as possible, pull them out of the Matrix and bring them to Zion. Or you could call it District 13, where we can sort of coalesce and create the revolution. So that's the point of the red pill comment.
Smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those things we ask you to do. We appreciate you all. Have a wonderful evening. We'll see you Monday.